Okay, let's start with the webinar. So just a few words about who we are and why we are here. So my name is Paolo Franceschini. I'm the owner of Ideale, and Ideale is supporting the process of growth of companies, providing support for using methodology to fine-tune business ideas and also to access public grant. And let's say I'm an experience and I work for several kind of institutions from European Commission up to Lombardy region. And I provide also support to startups, and large companies, corporates, small and medium enterprises. The common, let's say, the common things that all these organizations have in common is, let's say, a general view on the innovative process. Okay, you may find this slide also my contacts. Anyway, there will be a final slide with the contacts of both myself and Josh. And now I don't want to steal any further time to speak about myself, but I prefer to leave the door to Joshua Yeres, and that is the partner of Ideale in Tel Aviv. And I think that we may find really interesting opportunities and also prospect in the presentation from Josh. So from now on, I will leave the floor to Josh, and I will let him explain which are the main opportunities for all the companies, not just for our company from Italy, but also from all over Europe, in starting some collaboration with Israel environment. So Josh, I can leave the door to you, so you can keep the presentation.
No, give me the screen, and I will yes.
I think that is already activated the opportunity to see. Okay.
There we go.
Now you can share the screen.
There we go. There we go. Okay. So good afternoon.
Just put the screen in a full, okay, perfect.
There it is. Okay, so good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. And I will take off where Paolo left over. Oh, the screen is a little bit cut here, but about us, I am a partner in Variance Ascola. It's an established financial consulting firm in Israel, and we provide full services in relation to financial services, valuations, business plans, project finance, and also where I do the assistance for the grant assessing. Myself, again, I'm a partner in the firm. My experience includes, I'm also an examiner for grants for the chief scientist in the Israeli Ministry of Energy. I'm mentors and accelerators, and also I'm a co-author. I led the writing of a report for the World Bank several years ago about in innovation in the Israeli water sector. And my email, my professional email, and my LinkedIn are there for you to use as we go on. So in the next few minutes, and I'll be happy, usually when we give a real presentation, I'm always happy to take questions in the middle, but because of the virtuality, please keep them or send them and we'll relate to them at the end. I'll be happy to take any questions. Obviously, we're flying here at 60,000 feet. I will relate in short to various segments. First of all, a short description of the geography and the populations of Israel, the main legal forms for companies, taxation systems, and also IP. I will go into more depth about the innovation environment and also a short slide about the business etiquette. So Israel, I assume many people know generally where Israel is. We're at the lower left, right-hand corner, or the eastern part of the Mediterranean Sea. Israel is surrounded by land borders on three sides, north, east, and the southwest. So we have our neighbors that are there, some with peace and some without peace. We have a very substantial shoreline, coastline with the Mediterranean Sea, and also access to the Red Sea, which is also very relevant. Some of the projects that I've been involved with are relevant for ocean, sea, either in security or aquaculture. That is all very, very relevant. It's a semi-arid country, lots of sun, so we're very much into renewable energy, a temperate winter. So those are also important sectors by us. We're a relatively small country, about 8.5 million people. There are two official languages, Hebrew and Arabic, but almost everyone in the business sector has a good level of English. In fact, much of the high-tech area, especially in the IT area, they are writing and coding English. So while their speaking might be less polished, but they definitely have a good command of writing. And of course, since we are a very mixed population, you will be able to hear often Russian, French, Spanish, Italian, I forgot, but those are many other languages that you will hear. There are 4 major population centers, Jerusalem in the center, Tel Aviv, as I mentioned in the next note, the Tel Aviv in the center of Israel along the coastline. And that is where most of the businesses are located. There's a big city down towards the south called Beersheba, and Haifa is up in the north, where also there is the petroleum center, and also a lot of very good technology. Of course, also I did not mention here the fact that there are some very, very highly rated universities there too, in Jerusalem, in Tel Aviv, in Beersheba, in Haifa, where the universities are. Transport is developed. We're trying to make it better, but there is a national train system. They are now putting in also light rails. It's not yet in Tel Aviv, but it is already in Jerusalem. There are bus systems that are very, very that cover the country. But even before COVID, most people preferred using their car. I myself go into our office in the Tel Aviv area by the train and find it very enjoyable. Of course, we have several airports, including an international airport and also ports to the ocean for any serious trade. What type of forms of companies are relevant for Israel? So Israel is a very, very organized, legislated framework of a country. We're a democracy, and therefore we have our parliament, the Knesset, that sets the laws, and we have a judiciary that matter of fact, will judge them. So when it comes to running a company, so as I quote here, the ordinance, many companies, most companies are LTDs, are limited, and therefore that could be of any size in order to limit the personal liability of their owners. Within that framework, you have the private companies, which are 1 to 50 shareholders, and they have a certain level of financial reporting that is required, and public companies, which are listed here on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange. There is a national stock exchange for trading of equities. And that obviously requires a higher level of public of accounting reporting, financial reporting. Regarding foreign companies, and there are quite a number of representations of foreign companies in Israel. A company incorporated overseas, you can have a representation here with a branch office or subsidiary, but it has to be registered as a foreign company with a registrar of companies. In addition, as you are looking to maybe partner with entities in Israel, some additional important partners that you have to take in consideration are the other. So there are the nonprofit organization, which is run and by a different segment of the government. There's also a lot of partnerships and also cooperatives. And I put there, for example, many people have heard about the collective farms, the kibbutzim. I work with, matter of fact, they have an industrial hub. They have 250 established companies. They have 250 startups. They are very, very strong in many sectors. Obviously, they started in the agriculture, but they're into almost everything. And those are cooperatives. So therefore, when you're coming into a business relationship, it is very important, and you might discover that not all of the entities you are dealing with are LTDs. There are other ones, and that requires to be aware of and the relevant to take the action as of such. Right. Taxation and intellectual property. So Israel is governed by the International Financial Reporting Standards, the IFRS. There is a non-governmental but a recognized standards board called the IASB, which sets the financial reporting standards. All public companies, as I said, in line with the IASB's rulings, have to file according to IFRS. I have done valuations for companies, for example, that follow US GAAP, but Israel has now moved over to the IFRS. Taxation, we have various levels of taxation. First of all, there's the corporate income tax I'm talking for corporations, LTDs, which is 23% as of now. It's been fluctuating over the years. And also there's an additional tax on dividends. Of course, as I mentioned here, that the non-resident company is also subject to tax only on Israeli source profits. So that is something that your accountant should take in consideration, and where is the income coming from. Additional taxes that you have to relate to are also municipal taxes. If your offices are in the city, so every city has its own municipal taxes. There is also on a national level VAT, which now stands at 17% for any business done in the country regarding assets in the country. And I find it very important to point out, especially since my experience has with utilities, is you have to remember in Israel, unlike other places or some other places, the utilities, the water, the electricity, gas are not included in the municipal taxes. In Israel, water and sewage are provided in all cities by municipal water utilities. The electricity is provided by the IEC, the Israeli Electrical Company, national company, but it is separate. As to any gas or any other utilities that are provided, those you have to pay to those utilities directly and are not included in the municipal taxes. So that is extra. And therefore, there are meters on the buildings, and therefore make sure that is related to when you sign your contracts. Of course, the companies are expected to participate in pension plans and social benefits, which is a whole subject that is obviously beyond the scope of our short talk here. And also regarding product IP protection and trademarks, and also antitrust. So Israel has a very, very strong antitrust law. There is a strong antitrust authority. So if anyone is intends to merger or to purchase a major player, whether it be a petrol station chain or a supermarket chain or any other large entity, banks, so those will have to come under the review of the antitrust the entity, the regulator. By the way, my firm also provides, we have specialists in that area. And regarding trademarks, so we are a signature of the Madrid Protocol, and both patents are protected. The patent office is under the auspices of the Ministry of Justice. So that is also an accepted and well done practice with all of the development of the IP on hand. Drilling down now to after we discussed the geography and we discussed the accounting framework, I'd like to now drill down to our next subject, which is to the area of the innovation environment. And everyone we're familiar with the term about the startup nation. There is a lot of activity and innovation in Israel. And me and Paolo, obviously, we are very active in this collaboration segment. There are many opportunities for companies, entities not in Israel to collaborate for a good reason with Israeli companies. And if we're looking at the high-tech area, so you can see the numbers here, the amount of capital that has been raised by Israeli companies over the past decade, from 2010 to 2019. These are all numbers taken from IVC and also from the ministry, from the government, well-established entities. So over $39 billion was raised during the 10 years, over 4,000 deals, a large, almost 11,000 high-tech companies were established in this period, a large number of accelerators, incubators, meaning that they are supported by the government, which provides 85% of the funding for the 2 years that a company is incubating in there. Another opportunity for partnership from non-Israeli partners to come in when there are tenders for new incubators that are being set up. And I put down there in the bottom some famous examples of financing rounds and also very large exits that we are familiar with. Obviously, Mobileye being sold to Intel is also a very well-known exit, and they're in Jerusalem. On that same issue, we can see how the very, very nice ratings for Israel in the innovation environment. We see Bloomberg's rates Israel very high, the Global Innovation Index, and also even the global startup ecosystem ranking, they're all within the top 10. On the right side, you see the amount of R&D in percentage of the GDP that is put in, spent for companies, and Israel is on this is amongst the OECD, way leading it next to Korea, with the way above the average of the OECD, and that you can see, we see very clearly in the activities that are taking place. The other data that I put in as an example of one of the strong areas that Israel is very much involved in is the area of bioconvergence. And here too, Israel has a very strong global position, ranked 4th, ranked 5th, ranked 2nd, and also 500 companies in the area of health industry in the AI sector. So there is a lot of money that is being put into development of technologies, and that's why it's put Israel in such a high level and continue to do so. On the same line, in the next slide, I'm happy to find and share with you the information that I found recently, mapping the changes or the trends of the Israeli high-tech activity. And over the past 4 years, from 2016 to 2019, and we see a decrease in the areas of communication and e-commerce, also transportation, and we see a major influx of activity in obviously AI, and that is the zoom in that I put over there on the right side. We'll discuss that in a second. Food tech, a project right now that Paolo and I are active in. We put together a consortium. A Israeli client in food tech came to me, and there was a ERANET call. We put together a consortium, including University of Roma, Fraunhofer FIT, a Romanian software company, and we are now working together for that. So that's one example. A lot of agrotech, a lot of cybersecurity, Industry 4.0, digital health, it's all there. And zooming into the area of AI, which is the magic word nowadays. So we see here the breakdown where it is very much into the information technologies and software, but still a large segment in the other areas of clean tech, of life science. And there's a lot of spillover, and that is where a lot of activity in Israel is happening now. A lot of innovation, a lot of collaboration. I put this slide in as a direct continuation of what I said before. There is a very strong innovation authority in Israel. Obviously, funding comes from government and also comes from private sector. While the Israeli Innovation Authority is not the only government agency involved in supporting innovation, it is the major one. I would say 90% of the funding, if not more, comes from that. As I mentioned in my introductory slide, I do examine grant submissions for another framework, which is run by the Ministry of Energy. But that is outside the Israeli Innovation Authority. The Israeli Innovation Authority has several, 6, you can say, divisions. In many of those divisions, there is relevance for international partners. Obviously, the most relevant is the division called International Collaboration. And if we look on the left side, I don't know if you see my cursor or not, but if we look on the figure on the left side, these are official figures, zooming in just on the SME EIC accelerator about the success of Israeli companies achieving European funding in that framework. And is a very, very high success rate. And therefore, when I point to the right side of the slide, I really, really very much believe that there is a large amount of potential for companies outside Israel to collaborate in this area. Obviously, to collaborate in all business activities is for sure. But if we are talking and zooming in for this moment now regarding innovation funding, even in this area, there is a lot of opportunities. And I put down the major frameworks that are relevant. But obviously, as I finish off with etc., probably more. And what I mean to is, for example, there's a bilateral framework, and that means that there are on a certain in certain times of these for calls throughout the year, there will be an Italy-Israel call, there will be a Germany-Israel call, there will be a Spain-Italy call, Spain-Israel call, and those are in the first level. But there are also additional frameworks. For example, Eureka or Eurostars. I made a mistake in spelling Eureka. Eurostars, which is coming up in September, enables for collaboration between at least 2 companies, but even more, regarding 36 countries, and not just the EU. And Israel is also there. So the ability to put together a partnership of a R&D project that is relevant and that brings value to you, together with a Israeli company, is there. Aeronet, that is, a matter of fact, the framework that I mentioned before, that Paolo and I are working together on for the food net, for the food tech. There was a call now for a recent call for ICT in food, agri-food. Okay. Obviously, someone has their microphone on. Please turn it off. The plethora of H2020 calls. Obviously, throughout the years, we have the security calls. I'm assisting, for example, a large corporation called Elbit, which is a very large security defense company, and we are assisting them connect to European consortium. There are the frameworks of the FET. The FTI is a perfect example of collaboration where we need at least 3 partners from 3 different countries. Again, Israel is an associated country within the framework of the H2020. So Israel is not a member country. So there are a few frameworks that Israel cannot participate, but most, I would say, of the frameworks are relevant for Israeli participation. PRIMA, which was a few months ago, regarding Mediterranean agriculture and food. The IMI calls for health, Shift to Rail, and etc. All of those frameworks are perfect growing areas for collaboration, and what can start easily as a collaboration over a certain funding framework can easily lead into continued collaboration going forward to marketing. And I'm coming almost to the end of my short presentation, and Paolo asked me to put a slide about business etiquette. And he didn't see, but I was smiling, and I'm sitting here over the week preparing this presentation. I'm saying, what should I put in this slide? And I almost put a picture of a person at the beach. But nonetheless, as a researcher and an analyst, I looked online and found, as a matter of fact, I found some points which are really spot on and very, very, very accurate. So if I can give one headline to the business etiquette in Israel, it is relaxed and informal. And if we just go down, and you'll see, based upon the lines and the points that I put together here that I accumulated. So for example, don't expect the Israeli to have an agenda. If you're having a business meeting, so you should be the one providing the agenda, because if you don't, probably the meeting will not have a prearranged schedule, and it might go around the place. In Israel, we very much value flexibility, and maybe some of the people put too much stress on flexibility to where it's already irresponsible, but that's already half jokingly. People shake hands in Israel. While I appreciate wearing a jacket and a tie, at the end of the day, it is very often that I will find myself to be overdressed. So its formal dress is really not highly expected. It's a hot country. People will wear, if they really want to be fancy, a blazer, a nice shirt, maybe a tie, but even then, that's pushing it. First names. Again, getting back to the informal nature, this is where the Israeli culture is. No matter how senior or how junior, first names are used, and not so much Mr. Yeres. That's never heard. We're a direct people. People here do not appreciate understatement and subtleties. They won't understand it, and therefore I highly recommend not to use it. You might find yourself be interrupted in a meeting even by junior members. There is people here, we have a high opinion of ourselves. Maybe it's because of the army service or whatever, but that is what we believe, and therefore it is, we expect, as a matter of fact, I expect in my team for people to always say their mind, and to feel free to question what I'm saying in order, because it's a team effort. Don't hesitate when asked questions about yourself. People want to know who they're dealing with. We are a Mediterranean country, and there is a lot of interpersonal relationships here. And last but not least, since we are a Jewish state, so we don't work on Saturdays, Fridays also, people are not in the offices. Sunday is a regular work day. So the regular work week in Israel is from Sunday to the end of Thursday. So that is something for that. And how can we help you? So in closing, what we are doing and what we are suggesting and offering our services is as detailed here. We're able to define your business idea. We're able to identify relevant potential partners for you. We're able to assist in the project plan, support local teams, obviously, Paolo in Europe, and I'm over here, assisted the construction of the consortium. We can see exactly and assist you to find which framework is relevant in the national grant programs, and obviously in the international grant frameworks. We can help map the market, whether it's other business. Again, my experience includes assisting in the privatization of the 2 oil refineries, many large PPP tenders that are happening. So Israel is a small country, and in all due humility, there is not a person or a company that cannot be reached within 2 telephones, if not the first telephone. A lot of people, everyone knows everyone, and therefore it is very easy to achieve that, and we'll be happy to assist you in your endeavors over here. And this is who we are, Paolo and me, Joshua, and we'll be happy to hear from you. And this is what I have to say now, and I will release the share, and I'm open out to any questions. I should go back to slide 1.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Josh. So now the room is open. So if you have some specific question to Josh, you can ask him directly. You can use the chat, but
yes. What about safety?
Let's use the informal way. So try to be really informal and use the chat. So I will keep the chat visible so everyone can ask a question. Yeah.
So I'm going to start answering. So let's start with the safety. Safety is pretty good. I think there's problems of terrorism is global now. COVID is an issue that is all over. We have a very good security forces, and therefore I feel very safe wherever I am in Israel. I'm not so sure based upon the recent experiences in Europe when I was touring with my family recently in France or other places in Europe. There are bad things and bad people there also. So I don't think there is any problem with that. And you can see day to day, read the news. We're an open society, a very democratic society. We have everyone saying their opinion, and there's some people who have opinion this way or that way, but at the end of the day, the government is the country is flourishing and doing business. About electronic cigarettes, how is the business inside the country? I know that there has been activity on that, but I really would have to research. I really don't know that question on the top of my head. I have not been personally involved in that area, but I know there has been activity. Exactly what is the present regulation, Ministry of Health about it? Jewel, yes or no? I don't know.
And there was also a request to go back to slide number
1.
Number 1. So maybe just
number one was the picture of Tel Aviv that you put in the front.
I think the first one about the let's say your presentation. So It was the question by Andre, so Andre will be a little bit more specific.
Okay, so I see Danilo is asking about sports gear in a fitness gym. Although there is worldwide activity, we need to go deeper into a specific country. Well, Israel has a very developed fitness industry. There are fitness gyms all over. I personally don't go there. You might see that from my picture, but they are including very, very well-known chains, home spaces here, and also almost every neighborhood will have their local businessmen who will set up a gym. Your concern is about rules and laws. That is something that has to be looked at, but it's not uncharted territory. That's an active market and things are there. Next question. Are applicable CE standards? No, so there is, well, good point. It depends for what. CE standards are pretty accepted. There is also a national product standard. There is a national standards institution that sets standards, but very, very often they adopt CE standards. For example, in the area of life science and medical devices, so we either will go CE. Everyone will want the US FDA. But so that is that. So CEs are usually accepted, but we'll have to look and see what is the specific, if there are any specific requirements. As much as you get closer to food issues, because of cultural food issues, such as kosher, Israel, we are a Jewish country, so there is a very big stress on kosher food and the importing of kosher food. There may be more specific national standards, but in the non-food areas, I would feel safely saying that most of them are based on the CE standards. Hope that it was helpful for you. Yes, interest in electronic device. So pretty much so CE, yeah. That we have laboratories here that will check it, but there is a national institution for standards, and they again will have some specific requests, but they very often will adopt the international standards. Yes, that is what is the duty rate? That again, we have to check. There's everything. There's a very large import sector here. I mean, Israel does not have a large manufacturing base. There's a very high on high tech, but at the end of the day, everyone is wearing a watch that was made somewhere else. The cars are imported from somewhere else. The baby carriages are imported from Italy. I mean, these are all things that are done. So this is not uncharted territory. For foreign startups willing to collaborate with Israeli companies, relocation is advisable or is accounted as a default? Well, I think putting personal, especially now in the COVID environment where we're all getting used to working remotely, I think one of the major important issues that companies should relate to is the location of the IP. And that is specifically most important if that startup wants to access Israeli Innovation Authority funding. Israeli Innovation Authority funding will only go to a company that is the IP is here in Israel, and therefore that is part of the point. The people here in Israel are very, very mobile. Many of the people in the high-tech area and many of the companies have international activities. So there is a lot of, in the good days before COVID, a lot of flying, a lot of traveling, a lot of relocation. That is something that is done. But I think first and foremost, before you get into that, is the issue of, for example, of taxation, benefits, which one of them is the area of grants. Okay.
Any further question from? I know there was a question
So I'm taking back the gentleman or the lady, whoever was, asked about the first slide. So here's the first slide. Is that what you meant? I don't see the questions now.
It was this one. I think it was Leandre.
No. Okay. Any other questions? I'll be happy to, Paolo, as far as I'm concerned, I'll be happy to share this presentation with anyone who wants it.
Okay. Anyway, I recorded the presentation, so I hope that the quality will be quite good. So anyway, if the quality is good, we will upload if Josh is okay. Yes. On our YouTube channel, so you can reach the presentation and you can play back the presentation about Josh. So
one last question. I see Paolo Barbanati asked a question. Can an Italian company settle in Israeli incubator? As I said, to be an Israeli incubator, and the word incubator, and I said that in the course of the presentation, and I'll repeat it. In Israel, the framework, the innovation framework is slightly different. It's different than in Europe. I mean, one of the points I wanted to mention, for example, in Europe, there is a lot of research entities. In Israel, those are less, and they're more universities. We don't have URICAT and Fraunhofer and other places like that. They are, but they are smaller. An incubator is part of the government funding for innovation. And these are done through what is called the innovation law. And so, again, it is under the auspices of the Israeli Innovation Authority. And therefore, as I said before, in order to be eligible for direct funding from the Israeli Innovation Authority, the IP has to be in Israel. So therefore, an Italian company will not be accepted into an Israeli incubator. I have been mentoring an accelerator where they are here in Israel, and because they will get better benefits going to Germany. So that is as far as that. And what are the benefits for foreign startups? Again, there won't be a foreign startup getting money from the Israeli Innovation Authority. But what I was referring to is that there are frameworks for joint R&D where the Israeli company is applying or the consortium or the group is applying. So those frameworks are there. Prefabricated buildings in timber. I don't know that market offhand. We build here mostly in stone, in concrete. There was several years ago in the beginning of the 90s, especially when there was a large influx of people coming from the former Soviet Union. So there was a lot of use of prefabricated buildings. But I think that due to the people like having their concrete walls, and there have been some bad fires here. We are an arid area. Timber, even though I personally come from the United States, that market I don't think ever took off really. And can I settle an IoT Italian company with a partnership agreement? I'm not sure I understand that question. I would refer that to a lawyer. I'm not into exactly what agreements. Okay. Well, you have my emails, you have Paolo's emails, and please feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be happy to see how we can assist you.
Thank you, Josh. Really interesting, also for me, because I learned something new. So something I really know about the Saturday and Sunday and Friday. So sometimes it's quite difficult to find out the right combination. So sometimes I call you when you are on the beach. Sometimes you call me when. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so I hope that the webinar met your interest, and that we contribute in better knowing the Israel ecosystem. Anyway, you can come back to us. So I think that you took note of our email. Anyway, you can simply write me or write Josh via our website. Okay. And looking forward to see you again. So we will organize other webinar in the upcoming weeks. So thank you again, Josh.